back to the JMC Reviews. With summer in full effect, I thought it'd be nice to look at yet another Jaws knockoff. Today we'll be looking at the 1976 independent horror film, Grizzly. Or as the DVD cover calls it, Jaws with Claws.
It's not just a camping ground, it's a feeding ground, and no one is safe. 18 feet of man-eating, gut-crunching terror. Grizzly.
Grizzly was one of the earliest films to ride up the success of Jaws and follows it pretty closely.
Anyone is fair game. This Grizzly preys on the easiest food of all, man.
The concept for Grizzly was conceived by co-writer slash co-producer Harvey Flexman after encountering a bear on a family camping trip. Probably not as gruesome as what's portrayed in the final film. Fellow co-writer slash producer David Sheldon thought it would make for a good story. After completing the script, William Girdler, the director of such horror classics as Three on a Meat Hook, Abby, and Asylum of Satan, discovered the script on Sheldon's desk and offered to get financing as long as he could direct it. Girdler had previously worked with Sheldon on the films Sheba Baby and Project Kill. Within a week, Girdler had secured $750,000 from Film Ventures International, an independent movie company run by Edward L. Montoro, a sleazy motherfucker we will get into later. The plot for Grizzly is a simple one. A national park popular with the tourists finds itself being terrorized by a grizzly bear, and not just any grizzly bear, but a bear that stands at 18 fucking feet tall. As campers are getting mauled and buried by the big furry beast, the locals arm themselves and go a-hunting, being led by chain-smoking Chief Ranger Michael Kelly, played by the late great Christopher George.
We tagged every one of those bears. Arthur Scott knows every bear that's in this forest. No way he could have missed one.
After several unsuccessful attempts by the local hunters and the politics-obsessed park owner to keep the situation under control, Kelly heads into the park armed to the teeth with the assistance of the park's naturalist Arthur Scott, played by Richard Jekyll, and Vietnam helicopter pilot Don Strober, played by Andrew Pine.
See, we got a grizzly out there that's at least 15 feet tall, weighs maybe 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. Now I want to capture him.
You want to capture him?
That's right.
He's not kidding.
Scott determines the bear is a prehistoric breed of grizzly, hence its gigantic size. How he figures that out and how it's possible is never explained.
What do you know? Haven't you heard of suspension of disbelief?
Now just to be clear, yes, the plot of Grizzly is fucking ridiculous, but the movie is well made enough that it's pretty easy to get into, but when you watch it on more than one viewing, you really begin to see just how closely they ripped off Jaws. The film's got a hot tourist spot, a gruff lawman, a money-obsessed businessman that causes more harm than good, POV shots from the monster who remains mostly unseen until the last act, a three-man team hunting the beast, hell, we even get a traumatic backstory told as a group chat at night.
A long time ago, there's a tribe of Indians up here in these woods. Heard of grizzlies, smelled them out. They come in and they ate them. Little children, sick ones, everybody. A whole herd of man-eating grizzlies.
Although it's not even close to being as chilling as Quint's USS Indianapolis monologue.
Lifeless eyes. Doesn't seem to be living until he bites you, and those black eyes roll over white. Then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming.
And despite those point-by-point rip-off moments, there are quite a few things in Grizzly that are well done and are pretty enjoyable. For starters, the movie does have a decent pace, for the most part. There is a good feeling of dread, and while the characters aren't the most three-dimensional, Christopher George just owns the screen.
You don't give a good goddamn if we get that grizzly or not, as long as you get your press.
You are finished? Up yours.
He was so awesome at playing despicable villains, but he was also pretty decent when he had to play the protagonist.
You know those woods are full of campers?
They're in no danger. Bull!
I think we can all agree we lost him way too soon. Richard Jekyll does an alright job as Scott. As a Jaws ripoff, you get the feeling he was supposed to be Matt Hooper, but he acts so crazy at times, you almost get the feeling that he was supposed to be Quint and they just didn't know who to go with.
You're crazy, you know that?
You're crazy?
Could be.
Andrew Pine adds a lot of gravitas to what should be a pretty forgettable character.
Have you locked into any of this pattern shit? You know, Bear's got patterns. He likes women, keeps moving, sort of like me. Always trolling.
Pine shows as Don Strober that he has a pretty good knack for delivering monologues.
You know, in NAM, I zapped about 100, maybe 200 gooks. Called them gooks so it wouldn't get personal. But it did get personal. Now I don't kill nothing no more. Not even flies. Made myself that promise.
He also apparently came up with the Indian campfire story, which, as I said earlier, is not as compelling as the story in Jaws, but the dude could monologue. Two other aspects that really stand out are the cinematography by William L. Assman. The aerial shots, particularly the opening sequence, are just breathtaking. One of the few aspects of the film that got overall praise is the music score by Robert O. Ragland, whose music scoring spanned many cult classics from the 1970s and 80s, and his score is very well conducted, at times beautiful, which, I will admit, does seem a little out of place at times in what's supposed to be a pretty gripping horror film. But it's still beautiful.
I agree.
That being said, there are a lot of moments that remind you that this is a cheap B-movie knockoff of a much more successful blockbuster. Some parts that stand out are, despite the fact that there's a man-eating bear on the loose, people are still camping in the fucking park! And I thought the folks in the Friday the 13th sequels were retarded. There's a scene that I guess is supposed to be the sexy moment of the film where one of the rangers, a young woman, goes into a waterfall to wash off and she strips down to her bra and panties, and she does this while they're in the middle of looking for the grizzly bear, which just... why would you do this? You can't stand the heat. No shock, she gets eaten. As stupid as this scene is, I will admit, the blood flowing into the river kind of makes up for it.
Oh, gnarly!
There's a scene where a young man, while on the hunt, encounters the bear, and how does he react? He drops his rifle and runs like a pussy.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Seriously, it's almost as bad as that scene in Stephen King's Sleepwalkers.
Holy shit!
The Michael Kelly character has a girlfriend named Allison Corwin, played by Joan McCall, a photographer who's really into taking photos of the forest. This character is continuously featured throughout the first half, and she has many scenes with Christopher George, and you get the feeling that she's gonna play a big part later on, or she's gonna die, and that's gonna motivate him even further to go after the bear, but no, she doesn't die. In fact, she completely disappears in the second half of the film. He tells her to stay home and we never see her again. It almost makes you wonder, what was the point of this character?
I know this one!
Obligatory and completely unnecessary love interest.
Yeah.
Times change, nothing changes, nothing ever changes.
But by far, the worst character in the film is the park owner, Charlie Kittredge, played by Joe Dorsey. I know this guy is supposed to be the stand-in for the Jaws mayor, but good God, he is so stupid and so over the top in being a tight-ass obsessed with business that it just brings the whole film down.
That thing seems to know what we're thinking.
A grizzly is an animal, Kelly. Don't give it human qualities.
The mayor in Jaws, you at least understood that character's mentality for keeping the beach open. This guy just has no logical sense to him.
Campers come in here, they leave food around, the bears get the smell of it, and that's it.
Goodbye. I'm not gonna waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch. I'm gonna see you later.
But the big question is, how is the bear? The Grizzly was played by a Kodiak bear named Teddy, who stood at 11 feet tall and was, at the time, the largest bear in captivity. The bear looks about as threatening as a bear can be. Unfortunately, we never get the full effect of this thing being terrifying, mostly due to the fact that the bear almost never appears on camera with the human actors. This was obviously done to keep the actors safe, but it lessens the fear factor. And while it's clearly a case of the actors reacting to something that isn't in front of them and quick editing, you can tell they put effort into making it look like the bear was really wrecking shit. I'll give it this. As far as mixing actors and monsters that are never in the same shot, it's done a lot better than, say, the giant Gila monster ever was. And our prop to give the movie is, while the kill scenes don't go on too long and you never fully see the bear attack anyone, the gore and carnage effects are impressively bloody. You gotta give this film credit. While it didn't have the full cojones to kill a kid, it did have the guts to show him with his fucking leg ripped off.
Gross, Packer!
And the movie wasn't afraid to show a fucking horse getting decapitated.
She'll never know what she meant to me, and I'll just have to stand on my own 2 legs.
But of course, what is a cheesy B horror film without a climax? Now, while the movie is enjoyable and has a decent pace, the ending does feel like it drags on a little longer than necessary.
And listen, I want to thank you for being over my head with it without your help.
You know, just because you're ripping out Jaws, the climax doesn't have to be the whole second half of the film.
Let's go, on board, let's go.
The Scott character dies while looking for the bear. His death is really clumsy looking. After getting attacked, the bear buries him, because, as explained many times, bears do that.
I did not know that.
Turns out Scott is alive enough that he's able to dig himself out, but then old Forrest comes back and just kills him for good, off screen. Makes him being revealed to be alive seem completely pointless, and I don't know, it just seems like it could have been done a lot faster. After some cliche tears, Kelly and Stober face down the Grizzly. Stober ends up getting killed. We get the only shots where the bear appears in the same shot with one of the actors, although I get a feeling most of these were done with someone in a suit. As overdrawn as the climax is, the way Christopher George takes out the Grizzly is fucking amazing.
That motherfucker's dead!
So yeah, the dialogue can be a bit corny, the budget limitations are more than obvious in certain scenes, and the finale does drag on a little, but I'd say Grizzly was a pretty enjoyable, bloody, man versus nature horror film. The movie received mostly negative reviews, and despite that, Grizzly became the most successful independent film of 1976, earning $39 million on a budget of $750,000.
I am filthy, nasty, stinking rich!
It would hold the record for most successful independent film for 2 years until John Carpenter's Halloween.
Hell yeah.
Executive producer Edward L. Montoro showed himself to be a real greedy motherfucker when he tried to keep all the profits for himself. He only paid William Girdler, David Sheldon, and Harvey Flaxman their share after they sued him and won.
We deserve a share.
I say it's mine.
What about loyalty?
All for one.
And to further show what a complete ass cunt he was, in 1984, after a string of box office failures and a pending divorce settlement, Montoro embezzled over $1 million from Film Ventures International and just completely vanished. No, seriously, no one has seen him since 1984. He just took the money and ran off. It's believed he may have fled to Mexico in 1987, but he is still considered missing, and it remains unknown if he's even still alive.
And like that, he's gone. Underground. Nobody's ever seen him since.
Maybe he shacked up with Pierre Kirby.
What a useless guy.
One year later, Montoro would reunite with Christopher George and William Girdler to make another nature horror film, Day of the Animals. This one snagged into its cast George's wife, Linda Day George, and before he became known as the elderly king of spoof comedies, Leslie Nielsen.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
In 1983, a sequel was put into production, with David Sheldon returning as writer and Joan McCall, this time working behind the camera as the film's co-writer. Due to a shit ton of production problems, the sequel was unfinished and went unreleased until 2020.
Well, better late than never.
So those are my thoughts on Grizzly. Despite its setbacks, I did find it very enjoyable, and if you're into cult B movies, nature horror films, then I recommend checking it out. I hope you're enjoying your summer, and I will see you again very soon.
I made believe I was having an affair, and that turned her on.